Wow.
Okay, let's do White House press briefings, takedowns. Take 2. Let's see if we're even fucking streaming today. Oops, I swore, so I'm already demonetized. That's how we roll. Can I just do one? Do this a minute. Test 1, test 2. It's been a minute since we dual streamed. Let's see if it works. It has been a minute since we dual streamed. Alright. Weekly press takedown. They talked about Assange. We'll have to talk about it too, huh? Let's start out with the Department of State and get to it. Okay, Mr. Patel, what do you have to lie about today?
As well.
So, on Sudan, the evacuations.
Yeah.
So when was this third convoy?
What do you mean, Matt?
Well, were there 3 or only 2?
There were 3. The third convoy.
So the first one was Saturday.
Correct.
The second one, and 2 and 3 were on Sunday?
2 was on Sunday, and I believe that I will have to get the exact timing for you, but the third one arrived earlier today, Sudan time.
In Port Sudan?
In Port Sudan,
okay.
Correct.
And then in terms of, and I know that you guys are not wanting to give the numbers, but I don't see how it could be an issue. How many American citizens or LPRs have the consular staff in Jeddah assisted?
Matt, I don't have a specific number for you.
Can you give us a rough estimate?
What I can say is reiterate the numbers and the metrics that I've shared, which is that since the violence...
but that doesn't answer my...
I understand your question.
So the answer is no.
Matt, the other important piece to remember, Jeddah is not the only place that individuals
but I'm
are
only
going.
asking you about
I understand. I understand, and I don't
I'm not asking you about the entire universe. I'm asking you about Jeddah.
I don't have a further
Really? Do
specific
they not
for
have a
you.
count? CA doesn't have a count of the
Matt.
number of people that they've really?
This is an ongoing
I know it's
situation.
ongoing. I'm asking you so far. So obviously you don't want to answer that question.
I don't have a further specific breakdown for you.
Thank you. Thank you. So, this is our freedom of press. They can't even give us simple answers on things they absolutely know. This is our freedom of press. This is how we go. This is how we're going with things. Alright, that's our warm-up clip, I guess. Let's move on. We're going to take this in a time frame and get to Assange as we get there. So we are going to take this day by day. At the literally, chronologically, the time that they drop them. So DOS usually goes around 12:31, 1:15ish. White House is usually late, 1:30. A lot of times they like to go at the same time to make sure you can't catch them both. And that is one of the games they play. So you got to choose your battles. I don't know why everybody seems to choose Korean when Mr. Patel is so much better of a liar. Let's disagree.
Lastly, is the president tracking the negotiations with the writers union in California? He's a union guy.
Yes.
Looks like they're heading towards a strike.
So not going to speak to any specific case, as we normally don't do from here, especially as it relates to a strike. As you just said, he's a union guy. You saw him just last week in front of labor leaders.
Ooh, he stood in front of labor leaders. He must be a union guy.
3,000 of them, and so he's a strong supporter of workers' rights to strike, but just not going to speak directly to this particular strike.
They already strike broke. They are not pro-union. They break strikes, and they do not stand with workers. So there's a massive lie. Biden has a track record of being not pro-worker. So don't know what you're speaking of. but your lies are blatant. And we're going to make it quick and simple, guys. There's not much these people say on a day-to-day basis. But there is no commercials. Gotta love government. No ads. We move right to the next. Right to the next. 950 we go. We will get to Assange, but we warm up.
He's really totally focused on a ceasefire, correct? Possibly for 7 days, and that's what the government of South Sudan said. Or there's some talks in possibly in Saudi Arabia, but nothing beyond that. Are you proposing any kind of timetable or calendar on how you will go back to the political transition, the transition that was so much talked about?
Saeed, both things can be true. We can continue to call for and seek the extension of these ceasefires while also working a process to achieve a permanent cessation of hostilities and humanitarian arrangements that we believe will be beneficial to the country and to the Sudanese people. To support a durable end to this fighting, the United States from all levels of this department are coordinating with regional and international partners and Sudanese civilian stakeholders to assist in the creation of a committee to oversee the negotiation conclusion and an implementation of a permanent cessation of hostilities. Extension of a ceasefire, we believe, are steps that will continue to help get us in that direction.
Right, but you don't have,
I don't have specific updates for you, Saeed,
The
but
government does not have something, the U.S. government does not have something that, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, going back to where we were.
not anything that I'm going to read out or parse from here. We continue to be deeply engaged on this and are working collaboratively with relevant partners. Camilla.
Thank you. Back to what Leon was asking about the 5,000 figure. The reason I think he flagged, you said in Sudan, was just because yesterday you said 5,000 US citizens.
Okay. Let's move on. Damn, what day am I on already? We are going to breeze through a lot of this. We're going to get to Assange.
Fernandez, Valley of the Beast. Administration officials met last week with Cuban officials to discuss counterterrorism, but the administration has Cuba on the state sponsor of terrorism list. Why is Cuba on the state sponsor of terrorism list if you are trying to work with them to fight against terrorism?
So these security dialogues with Cuba, my understanding is that they're very standard and they happen at regular intervals and regular cadence. There's obviously, given the maritime boundary, important pieces of coordination that need to take place with Cuba, but these are dialogues that happen regularly at regular intervals, and we continue to not have a change in policy as it relates to Cuba's place on the designation list.
What evidence is there that Cuba sponsored terrorism?
Well, the regime has a long track record of egregious human rights.
She definitely gives the best question of the day.
Rights abuses, suppression of a free press, suppression of civil society, and other key factors that continue to keep them on that list.
But you can give me examples of terrorism
I'm gonna work
because
the
that's
room a little
human
bit.
rights.
I'm going to work
abuse.
the room a little bit. Thank you. Jackson.
Wow, just going to push right on through that one, huh? She has the best question of the day. You're going to completely push on through. Let's do her again. That's not fair. That was the best question of the day.
A piece-by-piece update. This is something that we continue to be deeply engaged on directly, and we're going to work tirelessly to bring Austin home. You had your hand up patiently. Go ahead.
Lisa Fernandez, Valley of the Beast. Administration officials met last week with Cuban officials.
He deferred responsibility to the black market actors and other actors like that, not the government specifically. Is that the administration's view that the Chinese government's not contributing directly to that problem?
I'm not going to parse the ambassador words, Dylan, but what I will say is that we, including the secretary, have been very clear that there is a concern of fentanyl precursors originating from the PRC and worsening the fentanyl crisis, not just in the United States, but also in the Western Hemisphere. And this challenge of addressing fentanyl precursors and issues under the umbrella of global and public health broadly continue to be an area where we believe that there is opportunity for collaboration with the PRC. And it is an aspect of our relationship that the international community expects that we handle responsibly.
So this is something you expect the government, the Chinese government specifically, to play a bigger role in trying to.
It is
try to solve
it is one of the many issues that we think that we have the potential to work collaboratively on with the PRC. Other issues you've seen us talk about in this space include addressing the climate crisis as well. Michelle, go ahead.
The U.S. talks with the Syria, Wall Street Journal reported that the U.S. made it clear to the Syrian regime that the release of Austin Tice will help Syria normalize its relations with the Arab world and the international community. Is that accurate?
You heard me say this, you heard me address both of these issues pretty clearly yesterday, Michelle, and so I will reiterate them both. First, the U.S. does not support normalization with the Syrian regime, nor do we support other countries, including our partners and allies, partaking in normalization either. Separately, on Austin Tice, we continue to engage on this around the clock and do everything we can to bring Austin home and to ensure that he gets home safely. That is a line of effort we're continuing to pursue. You saw the president and the secretary speak about this passionately over.
You don't know
over
what I
the
saw.
weekend.
Does the release of Austin Tice help the Syrian regime to normalize its relations with the international community?
Don't blame me for what I saw.
Michelle, we are talking about a very horrific wrongful detention of an American citizen who has been locked up now for more than 10 years. This is not about our policy as it relates to Damascus or the Syrian regime. This is about doing whatever we can to
A decade, yeah, that's about how long Assange has been. And you're right, that has been about a decade. Good job.
ensure that we can get Austin home. Aside from that, though, I will reiterate what I have said, that we continue to not support normalization with Syria, nor do we support the normalization of Syria from our allies and partners, and that will continue to be the case as we continue to pursue these lines of efforts to bring Austin Tice home. Said, go ahead.
Thank you. On the Palestinian issue,
Sure.
I have
Sure.
a couple questions, but let me begin by
Sure. That sounded, oh man.
what happened today. The Israeli army killed 4 Palestinians. One of them is a young woman, 26 years old, mother of 3, in her hometown, at a checkpoint. And in the other incident, they went.
I mean, that kind of dickheaded sure definitely makes you feel like an asshole when he gives an actual story, a personal story like this, and then asks a real question.
Incognito, dressed like Palestinian, and they just hit home with an anti-tank weapon to kill 3. And I wonder if you have any comment on that, or if you saw these events.
I've not seen this specific report, Saeed, but if you'll allow me, we continue to be deeply concerned about the sustained level of violence in Israel and the West Bank and the region broadly, and we unequivocally condemn any act by any party that incites violence, that exacerbates tensions.
All right.
And we have said repeatedly that Israelis and Palestinians deserve equal measures
Bullshit.
of prosperity, security, and
All right.
the ability to live.
We've listened to the bullshit. Now watch some clips about their lying journalism and their lying about Israel and all the things they lie about. Let's talk.
Harry and David makes Mother's Day easy. Share a gift made with love with the mom in your life. Choose from hundreds of stunning baskets and
All right. Where protecting the environment gets you killed. So, in Colombia, environmental protection or journalism, people do get killed on a regular basis. It is a thing. And the volume will go up on this, but let's check out some clips.
We're pretty high up in the Colombian Andes, about 2,000 to 3,000 meters above sea level. We're searching for a very specific bird called a yellow-eared parrot.
For decades, people thought the yellow-eared parrot was extinct, until it was spotted again, and a group of conservationists worked hard to bring its numbers back up.
Súper, estamos súper de suerte hoy. Hay un loro de amarillo y estoy ocupando el nido. Estamos muy cerca, en realidad, más o menos unos 20, 25 metros.
Son lindos, ¿no?
Son muy lindos, parecen un peluche.
¿Cuántos hay en Colombia?
En este momento se han reportado más de 3.000. Cuando Gonzalo empezó a reportar y empezó a hacer el registro, empezó con 70 individuos y mira cómo ha crecido la población. Por eso decimos que era el guardián del loro de amarillo. 1, 2, 3.
Mi nombre es Gonzalo Cardona, trabajo con la Fundación Proaves hace 15 años en el municipio de Roncesvalles.
Gonzalo Cardona was a dairy farmer turned conservationist who devoted his life to the yellow-eared parrot. But Colombia is a place where something as innocent as protecting a bird can get you killed. Cardona disappeared in January of 2021. His body was found 4 days later, buried in a shallow grave with 2 bullet wounds to the chest.
Again, Colombia, one of our biggest allies in South, possibly our biggest ally, maybe Brazil, but we give more weapons to Colombia and more aid to Colombia than anybody. And they do this to environmental activists and journalists sometimes, by the way, too. That's why we're talking about this. The environmental activists right now, but also journalists.
¿Qué pasó con Gonzalo?
Nosotros creemos que pudo ser simplemente víctima de grupos armados que están afuera de la ley. No puedo decir cuáles son o no tengo ni idea cuáles son.
¿Por qué un grupo armado tiene un interés en que no haya proyectos de conservación?
Puede que ese terreno sea un paso para ellos, un corredor de un movimiento de mercancía que pase ilegal, ¿sí? O puede que en ese terreno estén haciendo minería y no quieren que nadie pase por esa zona sin importar que haya conservación o no.
No one has been arrested for Cardona's death, and it's likely that no one ever will be.
Gonzalo Cardona was just one land defender in this one region, but there are people like him in every corner of this large and incredibly environmentally rich country, and all of them, on some level, are putting their lives on the line.
Every year, environmental activists are murdered by the hundreds around the world. They die for their opposition to logging, mining, and hydroelectric dams, or simply for defending their land from multinational corporations. In Colombia, 33 environmentalists were murdered in 2021 alone, according to the NGO Global Witness. Colombia is on the front lines of the struggle to protect the planet. It's one of the most biodiverse places in the world, rich with ecosystems vital for mitigating climate change. It's also rich with natural resources worth a lot of money, and it's full of cheap guns for hire and criminal militias that can get away with almost anything.
Buenos días.
Colombia's best-known environmentalist is Francia Márquez. In August, she became the country's first ever black vice president as part of the country's first ever left-wing government. But before that, she was known as an activist against gold mining, and this is how she lived, constantly in the company of armed bodyguards. We interviewed Márquez back in April of 2021, more than a year before her entry into national politics.
¿Y tú por qué tienes que andar así, con escoltas, en un carro blindado?
Quien abre la boca se convierte en un objetivo militar.
O sea, tú no puedes salir a la tienda de la esquina sola si quieres. Eso
no, siempre tengo que ir, así sea, a comprar algo, tengo que ir con ellos, con 3 escoltas.
Un año tuvimos un percance en Santander, en Lomita, en una vereda. La doña Francia estaba en una reunión con unos líderes y ya en las horas de la tarde, después de las 4 o 5 de la tarde, llegaron 3 individuos a hostigarnos. Se repelió el ataque y el compañero mío salió herido con una esquirla de granada cerca de la oreja.
¿Les tiraron una granada?
Sí.
Atrevernos aquí a poner en evidencia esas injusticias que viven las comunidades, pues nos pone la lápida encima. Desde 2009 nosotros hemos recibido más de 20 amenazas de muerte. Cuando hablamos de la minería ilegal, todos, hasta el Estado, el gobierno, dice sí, estamos de acuerdo con Francia Márquez, es una luchadora que defiende y lucha frente a la minería ilegal y estamos de acuerdo con ella. Por eso es una trampa. porque detrás de eso está la gran minería, detrás de eso está el proyecto de extractivismo promovido por el mismo gobierno nacional.
¿Tú sabes quiénes son las personas que quieren matarte y por qué?
La mayoría me han dicho somos águilas negras, otros me dicen somos los rastrojos.
Son grupos paramilitares de derecha colombianos.
Sí, grupos paramilitares, diciéndome, ya sabemos dónde estás, ya sabemos dónde están tus hijos, vamos a ir por ellos. Lo dicen, los declaramos objetivo militar porque ustedes no dejan entrar a las empresas multinacionales al territorio.
Entonces tú y otros líderes como tú reciben amenazas de grupos paramilitares que se identifican como tal y dicen estar actuando en nombre de las empresas
En
multinacionales.
nombre de los intereses económicos que entran, mineros que llegan a nuestro territorio.
¿Por qué no se puede llegar a conocer la identidad de los verdaderos responsables?
Porque hay impunidad en el Estado colombiano. ¿Sí? Si el Estado colombiano fuera un Estado que aplique justicia, nosotros sabríamos quiénes nos mandan a matar, quiénes nos amenazan. Y yo le preguntaba a las instituciones, ¿por qué estos actores armados nos amenazan en nombre de ustedes, en nombre del gobierno, en nombre de las multinacionales? ¿Qué tienen que ver con eso? Sí, hasta ahora no hay una respuesta.
¿Quién se beneficia de esa impunidad?
Pues los sectores económicos. Sí, o sea, aquí la política se colocó no al servicio de la vida, sino al servicio de los intereses económicos particulares.
Damn. Say that again. But instead to serve economic interests. Damn. Politics are here do not exist to protect life. Can we get that in 2 stills? But instead to serve private economic interests. That's everywhere. I'm sorry, that's fucking everywhere.
Particulares.
When we put these allegations to Colombia's former Minister of the Environment, he denied them. And either way, the problems go much deeper than any one administration. The paramilitaries who targeted Marquez and other activists are a legacy of Colombia's civil war. At the height of the conflict, big landowners formed private armies to fight against left-wing revolutionaries. These hyper-violent militias had the secret approval and support of the government. They committed massacres and other atrocities more freely than the actual armed forces could. Today, the paramilitaries have evolved into powerful drug traffickers. They kill anyone who gets in their way, or who threatens powerful commercial interests.
I think I just made her birthday.
I don't even know how he pulled this off.
I went to 1-800.
With someone like Francia Marquez now at the highest levels of power, Colombians are hopeful for change. The new government has an aggressive environmental agenda, promising to end new oil exploration and curb deforestation. But such change will inevitably meet resistance from the most powerful people in Colombia, those who for decades have gotten rich off the land. Those people have long counted on the complicity of the state, and vital ecosystems have paid the price, such as the Amazon rainforest, arguably the most precious and vulnerable ecosystem in the world.
One of the main ways that people monitor deforestation in the Amazon is by doing flyovers of the jungle in little planes like this one. And so today, we're riding along with a specific NGO that works heavily in this region.
Where we are right now is the northernmost extent of the Amazon rainforest. That line that you see between jungle and clear territory, that is the frontier of deforestation in the Amazon.
Mira, la palma.
Esos son esos cultivos así, los que están ahí bien
Eso es
organizados.
prohibido aquí en Guaviare. Aquí no debería haber palma.
Eso es prohibido. O sea, eso es ilegal.
Eso
Lo que estamos viendo es
sí.
ilegal. Es grande.
At first, the clearing of the land is illegal, but often the government then legalizes it retroactively, allowing the land to be bought and sold at market prices.
Pero entonces eso, o sea, el cultivo de palma obviamente genera capitales por sí mismo, pero también es parte de una estrategia más grande de acaparamiento de tierra.
Lo que ellos aspiran es a que sea sustraído para que se incorpore a la frontera agrícola y suba de valor.
Para mí sugiere que esa estrategia de inversión de largo plazo asume cierto nivel de complicidad por parte del Estado.
En algún momento tú vas a tener los aliados que te ayuden a transformar eso.
It's not just about the state being complicit with private actors. Some of the most intractable conflicts in the world are over major infrastructure projects actively pursued by national governments. That's the case in the Gulf of Tribuga, on Colombia's Pacific coast, where developers have been trying to build a deep-water port for 20 years. The environmental damage would be severe. The Gulf is thought to be one of the most biodiverse and pristine ecosystems on the planet.
The thing that makes this place so special is that you have virtually undisturbed ocean, coming into contact with virtually undisturbed rainforest. There are very few places in the world where you can find that at this point. And in both instances, the ecosystems are extremely biodiverse. And that has to do with the fact that they interact in the way that they do.
These combined ecosystems capture tremendous amounts of carbon, essential for slowing the pace of climate change. Instead of destroying the Gulf for a port they consider unnecessary, many community leaders would rather preserve it for tourism. One of them is Fausto Moreno, who owns a tiny eco-lodge in a remote part of the Gulf.
El suelo está lleno de cangrejos. Sí, ahí está. Ahí lo veo salir. Es que están por todos lados, es que uno se da cuenta. El suelo está vivo,
Solo
por decirlo.
exacto, pero yo te digo, manglar es vida. El manglar es vida, el manglar es una cosa única. O sea que tenemos, sí, épocas del cangrejo azul, de la piangua, de la sierra, de la merluza. O sea que hay épocas de diferentes especies. Entonces nosotros los hemos enseñado a comer lo que existe en el momento.
In October of 2020, paramilitaries kidnapped a friend of Fausto's, a vocal opponent of the port project named Juana Perea. They forced her to strip naked and kneel, then shot her 3 times. Although one member of the Gulf Clan, the country's largest narco militia, was arrested for the murder, it's not clear who ordered the hit or why. But it sent a chill through the community of local conservationists.
Que fue el mensaje claro que ellos mandaron. Somos nosotros los que tomamos la decisión y aquí estamos nosotros, somos los que decidimos qué va a pasar acá. Entonces, como es que también es una forma de que la gente empieza a tomar respeto hacia ello y tenerles mucho miedo.
Fear is what clears the way for companies and governments to exploit the land. And it's not just individual activists who bear the brunt. Sometimes entire towns are wiped out by fear. 20 years ago, paramilitaries stormed the village of Tribuga, executed 2 people, and drove the rest into the jungle. This was around the time the port project was first proposed. And Fausto is not the only one to think the two are connected.
Entonces, ¿qué pasaría? Si tú te pones a ver algún día, tú puedes ver los planos de la construcción del puerto de Tribuga. Esta cacería, este corregimiento va a desaparecer por completo.
Todo eso desaparece.
Todo desaparecería, todo esto está casado. Y eso es lo más seguro que debe ser, detrás de estos desplazamientos debe estar todo el tema del puerto. Si este puerto no va a beneficiar al departamento de Chocó, menos una comunidad como este lugar, que hoy en día, después de tener 500 habitantes o más de 500 habitantes, hoy tiene 50 habitantes.
Bajó de 500 habitantes a 50.
Sí, esta comunidad tocaría desaparecerla. Entonces, para desaparecerla, tienen que decir, metamos hombres armados al margen de la ley para que me asuste esta gente y se vaya. Y es triste saberlo porque detrás de estos grandes proyectos va a haber mucha baja de gente, va a haber mucha muerte.
In recent years, some of Tribuga's displaced residents have been coming home. But it's a small number. Most of the village's houses are still abandoned and half swallowed by the jungle. They're a reminder of the cost of what we're told is economic progress, and the fact that when people stand in the way of development, it's almost always the people who lose.
Bonito que tiene mi municipio, este es mi bello Golfo de Tribuga, donde el gobierno ya hizo un proyecto de hacer un puerto internacional. Muchos empresarios que aquí han llegado